Thank you, Susie.
Good evening and welcome to the second meeting of the Cabinet this month. I'm David Ruane, I'm the Leader of the Council, and I'm going to be chairing tonight's meeting. I'm going to ask, first of all, for apologies, and Becky, would you mind taking a roll call of, and if people can say whether they're in the room or online.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. In alphabetical order, I'll get started. So, Councillor Peter Paul Barker.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Robin Bennett.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Sam Casey Rihe.
Present in the room.
Thank you. Councillor Maggie Philippa Rivers. I believe she's not online.
Okay. She did send her apologies saying that she was feeling unwell and Mary Jones online if she was feeling able, but I don't think she is, so we take her
No,
apologies.
apologies.
Yeah.
Brilliant. Councillor Georgina Heritage.
She's here.
Thank you. Councillor Sam James Laurie.
Here in the room.
Thank you. Councillor David Ryan.
Here and in the room.
Thank you. And Councillor Anne-Marie Simpson.
Here in the room.
Thank you.
Item 3 is, I jumped over Chair's announcements, mainly because I don't have any. Item 3 is minutes. The last meeting was only a week ago and we haven't got the minutes yet, so they will follow at the next meeting. Declarations of interest. Does anyone have any declarations of disposal of pecuniary interests, other registrable interests or non-registrable interests, or any conflicts of interest in respect of items on the agenda? Nobody runs a car parking firm or a waste disposal firm. Okay. Item 5 is urgent business. I don't have any urgent business. As usual, we're not expecting any fire alarms or anything. So, you know, I think everyone here has been here many times and knows the route out. Public participation, item 6. I don't believe we've heard of anyone who wanted to participate.
Thank you, Chair. No registered speakers.
Item 7 is recommendations and updates from other committees. We've had 2 papers circulated because of the way in which the meetings have fallen. So there is one item which is supplementary papers, recommendations and updates, which is from the Joint Audit and Governance Committee that met earlier this week.
Yes.
I attended it. It now seems a long time ago. But that considered the Treasury outturn for 23-24, and the recommendation is there. We should take that into consideration when we come to that paper. And then there's another supplementary paper, which is which has recommendations from Joint Audit and Governance again, which is looking at the statement of accounts, which we're not looking at tonight. But then there's Joint Scrutiny Committee, which looked at the future delivery of household waste and street cleansing report. And you can see the recommendations there. And then there's the South Scrutiny Committee, which looked at the corporate plan performance report, the budget scene setting and the financial outturn for 23-24. I understand Councillor Arlott is online. Councillor Arlott, would you like to talk us through any of your recommendations from scrutiny?
No, Chairman, they're all in front of you. There's 3 of them. We were actually most impressed with the corporate plan, and I don't know if anybody listened to our meeting, especially the amount of money that's been drawn in by officers. That's always good to see. So spending our own money. The budget setting, I think we all sat into the meeting on that, and Simon ran through that very well. So we were more than content with that one. And I think the financial outturn basically just speaks for itself, though. Other than that, everything's fine as far as scrutiny we're aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Arnott, and we'll consider those when we get to those items on the agenda. So I get back to item 8, which is the future delivery of household waste and street cleansing services. There is a report which I'm hoping that we can discuss in public session. There's an appendix which is confidential because of the commercial nature of figures. If anybody wishes to refer to that during the course of the debate, can they let me know, and we will then defer the item to a private session at the end of the meeting. But I'm thinking that we can probably get through this in public session in order to be a bit more transparent.
Chair, there is something I'd like to say about the appendix, but I don't think it would affect the debate. So maybe I can just comment about it later
When we get to private session.
rather than. I agree. I think that debate should be in public.
Okay. Councillor James Lorry, would you like to introduce the paper?
Yes, of course. Our council has a great record when it comes to recycling performance, and our waste service is considered good by residents. This, along with street cleansing, is currently provided through a long-standing contract with Biffa. However, the current contract is due to end in June 2026, and so it's important that we, along with the Vale, review the options for future delivery beyond June 2026. Whichever option is chosen, the process needs enough time for us to create a secure, for us to secure the necessary provisions in order to guarantee continuity in service. Officers have completed a review of the realistically available service provisions options and have evaluated each option to arrive at an agreed recommendation, which is that we would procure a new contract, a bit of a different type to that previously procured. Not only would we be providing vehicles and access to a vehicle depot, we want an arrangement that is flexible and has continual improvement built in. We also need the customer to simply see and communicate with a service rather than any false distinction between contractor and council. Finally, and this is indicated within the new waste resources and street cleansing strategy, we need a renewed focus on street cleansing to ensure it is a service that meets the realistic needs of the residents and communities. And so the specifications will be improved prior to procurement. Report and confidential appendices were presented and discussed at the Joint Scrutiny Committee meeting held on the 30th of September, and the recommendations were supported. As was confirmed when the agenda pack was sent out, there are 4 confidential appendices included within the report. So if members wish to discuss any of the information presented within them specifically, in the meeting will need to enter a confidential session.
Okay. And I take it that you're proposing
I'm proposing
recommendations. Okay. Do you have a seconder? Councillor Simpson, would you like to speak now? Or would anyone like to discuss this proposal? If not, I will. Yeah, when I first started in the cabinet, my first role was a responsibility for waste, and I was told by the head of service that if we get this wrong, we should all change our names and leave the country. It is the most high-profile thing that we do, and it's the thing that provokes most public reaction. Luckily, it's something we do quite well, and so we don't get the hassles that we would otherwise get if we were running a poor service. Not only is it an efficient service that meets people's needs, but it also puts us top of the table on recycling, which is something we mention occasionally. I've mentioned it again. So on the principle of having looked at the options that are being proposed, which are to take it in-house or to continue with a service which is legally structured in a similar manner to the one that we have, or set up other legal structures to run it. I'm confident that having done all the due diligence and the assessments, that the recommendation is the right one. My only worry was that no one would be interested in bidding for the contract, but I see from the assessments that people have done that there are enough suppliers out there to give us a competitive market in the application. So I'm happy to support this. So I'll pass on to anyone else who has anything to debate. Mr. Bennett?
Well, that was like my hand, almost lifting my hand up. I think I would, yeah, just to say, whilst instinctively, like my tendency would be towards bringing services in house. I think we are, firstly, the previous government did make life very hard for us by not setting the rules around waste for quite a long period of time. So we had to do the previous extension, and during that time, we've taken steps to, in effect, bring aspects in house by looking towards our own new waste transfer facility and the way we handle dry mixed recycling. So I am satisfied, especially as we've put the waste the street cleaning strategy that we approved last week sets out the principles of how we want to do things, and that's what ultimately matters. And it is, the council is very successful in terms of its recycling rates and performance nationally. The current contractor do employ a lot of local staff and well regarded. So I think I'm happy with the approach being taken.
Okay. There's no one else, Councillor. Oh, Councillor Barker.
Yeah, so just to add that in addition to the fact that the bins are collecting the bins is very important, and friends tend, when they hear I'm a councillor, tend to assume that all I do is talk about it. But and now we actually are. But it's also a very large part of our budget. You know, it's one of our largest cost items, and so carefully managing that overall cost makes a huge difference to, you know, what we have available for other services as well. And I think it's the right time to go through a procurement exercise. The other options that are out there, you know, don't seem like a really good fit for us right now. And so, although we definitely want to keep those on the table, at this time, I think running a procurement exercise would be very beneficial for us and bring in a lot of useful information about the way these kind of services are developing in the country.
Anyone else?
I was just going to say briefly that the hugely thorough and comprehensive reports that I've been reading over the last couple of days give me confidence in the option that we're taking, and it's also you know, testament to the strong 85% satisfaction. It's testament to that strong performance as well. So I can see the huge levels of work that have gone into producing these. And I think at this stage it's the right way forward to take the option that we're looking at.
Yeah, no, just to add that, yeah, I think the options in the report were really clearly set out and went through really clearly and understandably. I think it's clear that some local authority companies, the LATCOs, you know, could be suitable under some of our policies of community wealth building and the fact that the councils would own a percentage of that. But obviously that's not precluded from going to tender. So those options are still sort of open, and I think in the end that the right option has come through. So I'm happy to report this.
Everyone's had their say, so Councillor Simpson.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go back to the beginning, because actually I think you made a very good point that waste collection, street cleansing are one of the most high profile services of the council, and we need to get it right. You know, it's sort of impacts on residents and visitors alike, and of course it is a statutory requirement as well. So I think this is absolutely the right way to go. I agree that it was a clear report setting out the recommendations. And I think option one, to go out to procurement's right. I understand it doesn't exclude a LATCO going for that in that procurement process for coming forward to put to tender there. And I think we need to remember it's a different contract. So we will have our own vehicles, vehicle depot, and it'll be flexible. And that flexibility is really important also for cost, I think, I understand. And, you know, hopefully we'll have continual improvement built in. And I think really important also, which I picked up, is that there'll be a single point of contact for the customer. So they'll be able to see and communicate with the service rather than this sort of false distinction between contractor and the council. And I think that's going to be a real advantage, and a renewed focus on street cleansing. How often do we hear about that from, particularly now after the flooding? So yeah, I'm very happy to second this.
To stress the importance of it, my partner took referring to me as the face of bins when I was responsible for this. So the current face of bins, Councillor James Lorry, do you want to sum up, or are you happy to go to the?
I'll give a brief sum up. The officers have done an absolutely fantastic job on the agenda pack, and as other councillors have said, have made it very clear. As Councillor Barker said, it is certainly the best time to go to procurement. We do run the best waste service in the country. We do have the best recycling waste, the best recycling percentage in the country. And it does look like this is the best way to go forwards. Though I do have an escape route planned for Holland in case it goes wrong.
Always use that. So the recommendations before us are on page 4, which say report as Cabinet A to review the options available, set out in the report, and B, subject to this review, agrees to progress option 1, which is and delegate the head of housing and environment in consultation with the responsible cabinet member to undertake a joint procurement exercise between South Oxfordshire and the Vale of White Horse. Important to mention that narrative that it's a joint contract. Everybody mentioned that during the debate. So can I see those in favour of accepting those recommendations? That is everyone. Thank you. I managed to do that without going into confidential sessions, and well done us. Item 9 is the budget setting for 25-26. Councillor Barker, are you going to introduce this? And we have Simon Haynes, available for any technical questions. Councillor Barker.
Thank you, David. So as the colleagues will be aware, a lot of work has been done already to move the budget process forward in the year, spread it out more than it was in the past, and this is part of that process. And Simon's team have done an excellent job in running briefings, both for us and for all members, and scrutiny, I guess, as well. So I think that's very good progress that's been made already. And what you see in the paper in front of you is a summary of that situation, describing where we are in the process and what the rest of that process looks like. The stage that we're at is that the initial assessments have all been made based on information that's available at this time. And as we all know, there's a lot of variability in the budget process because things like government guidance doesn't turn up until Christmas Eve, typically. And we also have the change of government, where that may or may not affect, what we find out in terms of government funding on Christmas Eve. But there's also other aspects like the interest rates path, which might look quite different following the recent inflation figures when new forecasts are done for interest rates. There is a forecast in the papers tonight. So all that kind of information's open to change, subject to change. But what we have in front of us already now gives us a good picture of the overall picture. Just to call out a couple of items, in paragraph 8, there's a reference to the base budget exercise, looking for savings targeted at around £1 million, and that's not savings at this stage, in any way in terms of changing service levels. This is around budget management. And so that's what departments are being asked to review to make sure budgets are set at the right level. And in point 11, paragraph 11, you'll see that there's a process upcoming for the cabinet to consider, spending items beyond the base budget. So whether there are growth items, for example, of any kind, or the reverse. And that stage we haven't reached yet, but that's coming soon. So I think I've mentioned all the main points. So, oh yes, of course, and as we were just discussing, for example, with one of our contracts, one of the other big variables is the cost of future services. And as those services come up for renewal, those costs can vary, often quite substantially. Less of an impact on the immediate budget year ahead, but certainly when we look at things like the medium term forecast over 5 years, those kind of things can make a very big difference, as we saw recently. So our cabinet's asked to note the contents of the report.
So it's a very early stage in the process, but you've had this report. Does anyone have any questions either for Councillor Barker or for Simon? In which case, you'll just note the report at this stage, bearing in mind that there are lots of uncertainties, but that's life. Certainly the nature of budgeting.
There's my one comment, Chair, just that I think it's paragraph 9. Sometimes some members ask what the transformation work is doing, but that's very clearly set out there. Reviewing how it's directed to maximise savings, which may change how we deliver services. We've already seen that in some departments.
And bearing in mind, one of our strategic priorities was to steady the financial ship. So all important towards doing that and to allowing us to do other things. So is everyone happy to note that? Do you need a formal seconder?
I think we should.
Okay, I'll propose it. Councillor Barker, you got a second? Yeah. And everyone is in favour. General nodding. Item 10, Treasury Management outturn. On again, Barker.
Thank you. Yes, so this is the looking back at the results for the full financial year 23-24, and I think we've already looked at this multiple times as it was going through the year, and these are the final results, very much in line with what we saw during the year as well. A very strong outturn, good investment performance in all areas. Obviously, because interest rates were higher than expected, the outturn was better than expected as well. Yeah, joint audit and governance were satisfied that the activities have been carried out well in accordance with the strategy and policy which we defined, but also carried out very competently, I think we should say. And so the recommendations that we've got are for Cabinet to note the outturn report, and the Cabinet is satisfied that Treasury activities are carried out in accordance with the strategy and policy, and to recommend Council to approve the outturn report and approve the prudential indicators.
And you're proposing that?
I propose that, yes.
Okay, if I formally second it, does anyone have any questions or issues to debate? So this has been through the committee system to be reviewed, and we're taking it to council as well, so I'll be another chance to discuss that. Can see those in favour of accepting those recommendations. Again, that's everyone. Don't go away, Councillor Barker. I think you're up next. Item 11 is the Q1 budget monitoring report. There you go.
Thank you. So this is our first look at the performance in the current financial year. So budget monitoring April to June, and the budget was agreed in February, and this is our first look at that. At the time in February, net revenue budget So, the net inputs and outputs was set at 23.4, and the paper tonight shows us that that has increased to 26.4 due to carrying forward unspent one-off project budgets from last year, which is a regular feature of these budgets, and largely unavoidable in that we have to set the whole budget for a project in the financial year, even though we know that more often we will over multiple. There's good news on revenue in this first quarter report, because there is an underspend on service expenditure around £500,000, and again, due to interest rates, investment income has exceeded budget, or the forecast is for the whole year to exceed budget by 1.2 million. So that gives us a total benefit versus budget of 1.7 million on revenue. Capital's there as well, and but without much information to share, except in terms of the overall financials. Full budget 36.9. So far we've spent 7.5, but the budget has not yet been reviewed, and that there's a full review taking place at the moment. So at this stage, just recommended for noting.
Thank you for that. I have a question, which might be for Simon rather than Peter Paul. I think it's an accounting question. Just the overspend on housing and environment. Looking at the note underneath, it looks like this is purely a bookkeeping entry, in that we used to take money when it was on the garden waste scheme. Everybody signed up, and we took all the money in the year. Now we're apportioning it to the period. It seemed quite a big number for that, but that is what's happening, is it?
It is. So effectively, when people paid their garden waste, the whole amount was accounted for in year. Technically, not the correct way to do it, but actually, it's also considered. We've done it for so long, so it's consistent. So this year, because we're changing the approach, we have a 1 year issue. But the key thing is, if this isn't a loss of income on the garden waste scheme. This is a reprofiling of when that income's going to hit the books.
It's less coming in this year, but there'll be more next year.
Yeah.
Councillor Bennett.
I have a question that might be an accounting question too. It's mentioned in paragraph 13 about the Didcot Garden Town project funding, which always shows up as a big underspend, but we know in reality it's already planned over multiple years, and says it's going to be transferred to a reserve. Just wondering, is that going to happen soon? What needs to happen for that to happen?
I think that's the team need the time and capacity to think that through and do it. I think what we've got at the moment is we're mashing together in this report, if you like, the revenue budget and outturn against the standard revenue spend, plus are after one-off projects. And I think the ideal thing we actually need is two tables. So you've got your sort of your performance against the budget that's set in February, and the performance against the grant funding we received separately, or one-off funding we received separately. We need to do that. It's a case of the team finding the time to do that, and also probably set the system up so those numbers come out automatically, because that at the moment that would be a manual process to extract all that and create the two tables. But I think with a bit of time and some thinking about how the ledger works, we can make that work. I'd like to think we'll do it this financial year. I'm not promising that.
Coming from a charity background, we would have general funds and restricted funds, and that's effectively what we're saying. So these are restricted funds that we've received for the Garden Town project.
Yeah.
Let's show them separately today. Okay. Any further questions? If not, then the recommendation is to note the contents. You're proposing that, Councillor Parker. I'll second. Is everyone happy to note those contents? I'm nodding. Thank you. Moving on now, Peter Paul can have a little bit of rest. To item 12, which is the corporate plan annual performance report. Councillor Kessler, would you like to introduce us?
Thank you, so well. So this is the annual performance report for 2022-24, and the performances, as you can see, are set out against the 6 themes and the actions under those themes in our corporate plan. This is the last full report, on the 2020 to 24 corporate plan, the last full one. And as you all know, under this report sits the more detailed action plans, and then of course the team plans, etc., for all the council activities. And there is, of course, the more detailed data and information on the council's data hub. So I'm really pleased to bring this report to Cabinet. As you can see, the RAG rating, the red, amber, green rating, is mostly green. So that's very pleasing. And I think this is a tribute to how the council staff have embraced the themes in the plan over the last 4 years and worked really hard to bring the actions to completion as much and as completely as they can, but also to embed these themes into their day-to-day work. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to my predecessor, who was online, I saw earlier, in this role in Cabinet, to Councillor Andrea Powell, who's a Cabinet member for all of the period of this report, and indeed for the whole of the corporate plan period for 2020. And I think the positive nature of this report is a testament to her excellent work overseeing the corporate plan. So thank you to Andrea. Yeah,
Here, you're proposing that is someone else seconding. Is anyone happy to second? Don't speak now.
Yeah, I mean, I've been very fond of these reports actually, and I think that we've seen how over the course of the year they've become sort of more readable, and just a lot of work's gone into them. And I do share them with my parish councils. I think that was one of the feedbacks from one of the scrutiny panels. I think that I particularly like action on climate emergency. Going back all those years when first elected, that was something that had just been passed by council declaring climate emergency, and we worked really hard in lots of ways. But I will of course pick out, as Cabinet Member for Planning, the performance ACE 6, I think, which is action on climate emergency through planning and land use, and the work on the joint local plan that has progressed really in leaps and bounds. It seems like it anyway recently. This year has really advanced that, and so you see the green RAG rating has been pretty consistent on that front. So I just think well done, because this really shows the work of all teams in the council, everybody coming together, and the golden thread of climate change or climate action or climate emergency is definitely there throughout the whole document. So thank you for all the work that's gone into it.
Okay. Anyone else? And for Heritage?
I was just going to say that I made so many notes about this that I won't read them out, but it was it was just what a positive report. It really brought a smile to my face, and I started thinking, well, I'll make some notes about the areas that really stand out to me. Particularly pleased to see land drainage engineers working with OCC regarding the flood measures, the openness and accountability with the joint local plan consultations. The action on climate emergency, of course, the decarbonisation schemes for leisure centres, the solar panels, climate emergency and biodiversity, retrofitting homes, community wellbeing, homes and infrastructure. It was just, you know, I had to stop writing in the end. It was just line after line. And isn't this positive? Yes, you know, just thank you to the officers that put this together and reflected what the council's doing at the moment.
Okay. And yeah, summary from me is, if you remember 5.5 years ago, we started off with quite a big shopping list of things that we wanted to do, and it feels good looking back from now to see some of them coming through. And I was just looking at the homes to meet local need. The two big pillars of that. One is our joint local plan, which hopefully will be going off to inspection at the end of this year, and the other is our housing delivery strategy. And yeah, if we do nothing more, having done those is going to change some of people's lives. So I'm happy to commend this. The agenda just says to consider. So are we happy that we have considered it?
I'll make a quick comment.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to mention a couple of other things, just as well as the work that the teams do to deliver our projects. They also get involved outside the council a lot, sometimes to prevent things happening that are be harmful to our projects. So, you know, we're signed up to the strategic vision, but I know the economic development team has spent a lot of time engaging with the strategic economic plan and making sure that, or at least trying to make out the case for what our views are on those types of issues, and signing up to the Oxfordshire Inclusive Economy Partnership, which is a way of positively impacting the economy outside of the council. And I just wanted to also mention that the Garden Communities team, not only loads that's gone on in Didcot Rutland Town, you know, went ahead and funded the local cycling and walking infrastructure plan and new wayfinding strategies, but also I think Berensfield, because it's my ward, maybe people don't necessarily know, but there's also a whole community delivery plan for Berensfield. There's also a health and wellbeing strategy for Berensfield that has been a huge amount of work, so that we're not, and if I compare that to what was going on in Berensfield before our administration, it's really so different, and the kind of community involvement there is so much better now, and that's testament to the work of the officers there.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for pointing out the things we do, stopping things as well as doing things. I
In a very positive way.
yes. I often think about the division of my time between the time I spend doing good stuff and the time I spend stopping daft stuff happening. Happily transferring over to the doing good stuff most of the time. Okay, that was item 12, which we have duly considered. We're into motion first and second, so we've considered it. Item 13 is car park options appraisal. Having looked at this, I think the way in which we address it is that we ask Councillor Jane Laurie to introduce it and make some general points, and if the officers want to add anything to that at that stage, then we do that all in public session. I think we are relying quite heavily on a confidential report that compares the various options. So once we've done the introduction, I'm going to propose that we exclude the public so that we can have a private discussion about the options. That seems the most sensible way of following that. We'll see whether you agree with that when I propose it. But Councillor James Laurie, would you like to tell us what it is that we are considering and introduce in general terms to
So we are considering the council's car park services. The car park management contract was originally part of the 5 councils contract set up in 2016 and was managed by Vinci and subcontracted to Indigo. In 2018, the contract was novated to the councils and Indigo was taken over by Saba Car Park Services, who is our provider. The report that was sent out, that will go into confidential session, provides the recommendations for what we will, the options and what we will do within the for the car parks. I don't really know what else.
what's it there. Okay, having introduced what it is, so Steve Collins used to tell me I've got to read this all of this out, which is exclusion of the public. To consider whether to exclude members of the press and public from the meeting for the following items of business under section 12A of the Local Government Act 1972, as amended, on the grounds that 1, it is likely that there will be disclosure of exempt information as defined in paragraph 3 of schedule 12A, and 2, the public interest in maintaining the exemption outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information. If I propose that, would someone else like to second it? And for James Lorry, any debate, or are people happy to accept that proposal? Good. Could we shut down the live feed?
Shut down the live feed, Susie.